Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids of all ages, welcome back to the show with your host the most, Mr. M, and welcome back to a new series on the channel that I call The Prop Show. Now, this series is going to be a little bit different than my usual series because I actually have a set now for just this series. Basically, The Prop Show is this show where I will be reviewing and talking a lot about the behind the scenes and showing off the main props that I kept from my original works I had of series I've done in the past. We're going to be covering the Seuses, we're going to be covering Dr. Mooch, we're going to be covering a lot of old series that I've done in the past, and some of the props I kept. Some episodes could be short, some episodes could be long, depending on the mood I am feeling that day. So that's what we're doing. And for just bringing in the new show, I almost said bringing in the new year, today we are bringing in a series that I personally loved on the channel that, well, has held near and dear to my heart for a very long time, and a lot of you personally liked it. Even though the series was a bit iffy here and there, you still all enjoyed it very much. And so, I'm going to show it right off. Before I show you this amazing, lovely set I have right here, and I will turn my table to show you this amazing new device we have right here. And we will do some camera work to show you right here. We're going to be posting over that this device we have is called a Spindex, where it's basically like a very high-tech, lazy Susan, and it's going to be showing you all the props, and it's one of our newest gadgets. As you can see, it's spinning left, it's spinning right, and it's just spinning a whole lot. So that's what we got to work with, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you do enjoy this new series. I'm quite excited. And I'm just excited for this. I have a new desk. I did a lot of work for this series, and I took a lot of time to find all these props. So let's just hope this goes well. So let's get into what we're doing for today's shoot. And for today's shoot, I have a very special thing, and here's our new segment. I give you props of the week. In this week's first episode, we're going to be covering Dr. Mooch, one of my favorite series I've ever done on the channel, and Dr. Mooch was always like my favorite thing I've ever really created, because I've had some series I loved, like the Seuses will always be my number one, because I just love the characters I have and just the ideas I wanted it to go. But when it came to doing a Doctor Who based off series, I always loved it. Now, I'll start off with the Tardis. Now, the Tardis right here that you're looking at right now, that we have a cool zoom in right now, because I'm going to be trying to do that effect, is this Tardis is basically a, just, when I was young, I had this Spider-Man tin box that I got as a gift from school, and over the years, I've always liked it, and I still had it, and when I wanted to do something Dr. Mooch, when I was still in the first apartment, I don't know, I'll try and find a clip, I'll put it in right here, and I'll talk over it probably, and basically I turned it into the Tardis. Now again, I was like, I don't know how old, 13 maybe? I'm probably wrong, maybe? But I loved Doctor Who at that point, I believe, or just thought the Tardis was cool in general, and made it look like this. A lot of mist of some of the fabric, hot glue everywhere, and just some of the metal still showing, so I took a blue marker and sharpied it, and there's a piece of thread on the top, like a spool of green thread, and a piece of a Lego cap on the top. Originally this had a red diamond at the top that basically was the power source of this thing, but after some time, my dog got at it. As you can see, it's a bit chewed up and just not what it used to be. But, and if you open it up, you can see it's just just a locker. This was a coin bank locker that I basically, well, over the years, it has been falling apart. A lot of the things I put in it is gone, and also the I want to say the fabric's coming off because hot glue does not stick to metal. If it's cold metal, it will just stick, not for long. It will be stuck on there for just as much as the glue wants to hold, but on one side you can totally tell it's peeling off, like in this clip you can see. But this TARDIS, when I started making Dr. Mooch, I can put in a clip right here of the clips of the TARDIS, I needed a TARDIS, and to be honest, at that time, I just didn't want to make one just because I wanted to do the first episode. And the first episode will always hold a dear place in my heart because I used a lot of key things, and that series was just fun. I got to use my creative ability to tell a story. And so, I needed a TARDIS, and so I had this already made, and I was like, well, in Doctor Who, the TARDIS goes through many forms over its time with the Doctor, and when he regenerates, the TARDIS regenerates too. It gets a new look. So, with that, I basically thought, let this be the very first TARDIS, because then I can get updates here and there, and like I can probably make a better one for the next season. Because sadly, when I made this series, the show basically didn't go like as long as I wanted it to, because, well, I think there were just, I don't know how many episodes, I believe 3 or 2 episodes in season 1 where Mooch was actually Dr. Mooch, and it didn't go so well because I really wanted the series to be like a 4-episode series where Dr. Mooch will then regenerate after the 4th episode. I guess that's what my mentality was, because that's basically what it was. And so, as we look at it now, this thing has been with me for a very long time, and I've loved this little thing. It's been a part of my history on this channel, and what I basically brought to the table. I just thought it was cool. I thought this is just one of my things I've always had in my room because of the memories. And I just loved it. And so, a lot of stuff went into it. And just a lot of things happened with this thing. And we had just a lot of good times on that show. But, again, I will always remember it. And I couldn't ask for anything. But I did make 2 more TARDISes after this one. I made the one for season 2, and then over the years, I wanted to make season 3, and I made a new TARDIS. It's pretty cool. It's up on the shelf right now, and I can see it. It's behind us. You can't really see it, but we'll show it off probably down the road. Maybe, if I can get the seasons back running again. So with that, that's the end of talking about the TARDIS. Now, moving on to the cast of characters that I picked out for this specific episode. And here are the characters. I picked these characters specifically for these roles. When it came to Dr. Mooch, I knew, well, who's the first person to get? Mooch. Now, here's Mooch. You can see him now. He is spinning on this lovely thing I bought. And Mooch already had a costume for himself. Mooch had his normal gray, dark gray coat and his bow. And funny enough, that costume was originally was his very first costume I ever made him. I made his costume on my first vacation to Texas to go visit my father, and I brought like 20 characters with me. Thought I could do a video, never actually happened. And so I thought, why not? Because I just then got Mooch. I got him and I brought him because I love this little monkey. So I brought him with me, and I thought I could whip up something while I was there for him. So on that vacation, while I was like just chilling in my room, I had a blanket that was falling apart. And I had some of this cloth material from, I don't know what it was, I think it was a shirt. I cut off some of the shirt, and the only thread I had was this green thread and this small needle. And I just went to work. And his bow is made out of the trim of a blanket. The trim came right off, and I was like, maybe I could use this. I ripped it right off, and I made the bow, and that's been it ever since. Mooch's character design was always simple, and it was just classic. And that looked pretty, like, if I base this off of the very first Doctor in Doctor Who, he's pretty close. Just needs a cloak and some pants and a few other things. But, for some reason, I gave him a green coat. Now, when I made this green coat, originally, I have Mario and Luigi plushes that I wanted them to have green coats, and those coats were for them. And so I just gave him this green coat to, I guess, make more of the character. But in reality, a green coat on the first Doctor really didn't look quite as expected. Now, looking for these props was a bit of a challenge for the first episode. When it came to the first episode, I wrote down key things that needed to be found. For instance, with these characters, and with the Tardis, we can go back to the Tardis, and we crack it open. There's books, there's shelf things, because in the Doctor's Tardis, there's a bookshelf, and he had all these books, he had a fish tank, he had everything on that shelf, and I kept the books and some key props off that shelf. The shelf, I think, it got broken in some sort of moving, and so the shelf went, and so I just had the books left. And when trying to find these key items, they were just key ones that were important to the scene. For instance, the characters' costumes. Mooch had his basic costume on, except his green cover. I had in Asia, we'll move to Asia right now, you'll see Asia. Asia is basically just wearing her normal outfit. I don't know when I started where I actually, this cloak she's wearing is her basic thing she's always been wearing. I think if we cut to the Seuss's, the Mooch's crush, I believe she's wearing that in that video. If not, she probably wore it after Dr. Mooch, because I can't remember right now off the top of my head. I'll probably put it in, but that's where that came from. It wasn't much, you know. Now, moving on to Enderman, or as I call him, Ender. Or Endy, actually. Endy's costume was a bit of hit and a miss, because for this episode, I needed somewhat of a bad guy, not really, a somewhat bad guy that was tricked into being a bad guy. And so for that, I took one of, when starting to sew, I made a lot of, try and error costumes, and one of those try and error costumes was this yellow vest. It's basically a piece of fabric with 2 holes cut out of it. And these characters have not worn these costumes in a long time. And I will tell a story right now about Enderman with his costume and looking for it. When I was looking for Enderman's costume, I found his boots and his coat, I believe, in a box that I had in a closet. I found his coat, I found his shoes, I found Mooch's coat, and I believe that's the only thing I found in that box other than other costumes, because I have a costume box with that. But then, when we came to looking for the characters, I found most of the characters. One of the trickiest ones was finding the villain, and I'll talk at the end of this video of the thumbnail, because the artist of the thumbnail is a pretty good person, and a lot of credit I must give. But when it came down, when it came to finding all the characters, I found most of them, and well, the majority, all of them, and the hardest one to find was the Enderman. When trying to look for Endy, it was very difficult. And I don't know why, but when I moved my desk, and my entire room got an update, and I moved a lot of stuff around, and one of those things I had on my desk a lot was Endy. But then I moved Endy into a cabinet with other characters. Asia was in that cabinet too. But in the midst of trying to locate these characters, I lost Endy, and I thought I put him in that cabinet. I looked in the cabinet, and it was dark, so I didn't see him, because he's all black. and so he blended into the back wall because the entire box is black. And so I went looking underneath my bed because I had most characters under there, and then looked in my back corner, thought he was there, looked in my other corner, thought he was there, then I looked back in that cabinet, and then I found him. It took me about an hour to look through everything, and it sucked. But when it came to Enderman's costume, I just threw things together. His outfit, I talked about the vest, but the boots I made originally for Mooch. Mooch was going to wear those boots until I actually put them on Enderman and thought he looks pretty good with boots, because Enderman have just those blocky feet, you know? And so I thought, why not just put those on his feet? And so I did. And so I have had these characters for a very long time. And I believe I've had Enderman for the longest between Mooch and Asia, because Mooch came before Enderman, because Enderman was a gift from my mom's friend to me. Or actually, no. I got Enderman at Walmart a long time ago. I was thinking about another character from Minecraft I got as a gift. It was a creeper. And so that was that. I got Mooch and then I got Asia. And that's all she wrote with those. Ow. I need to outzoom a little bit. I didn't know we were this in Zoom. With that in mind, I've had these characters for so long, and my foot is stuck underneath my table. Now, moving on to most of the props. Alrighty, welcome back, and now we are looking at the mini props that kind of help this episode go. So we are right now looking at Mooch's fez. Now, a lot of things from this particular prop kind of show off a lot of what I could sew. Originally, this prop is for the 11th Doctor, and the 11th Doctor in Doctor Who wears a fez. He loves fezzes. I don't know why, but in this episode, I really wanted Mooch to be the 11th Doctor. But he basically wasn't. And so we went with that. And I basically, in this scene, you'll see here that I'm talking over right now, is the air vent / garbage area room that they all through Asia, Enderman, and Mooch went through a vent to escape the Five Nights at Freddy's Cybermen attack that was just about to happen. And so they did, right through a vent. And while in that vent area, Mooch and Asia are just stuck down there until Mooch finds a lovely thing called the fez. Now, a lot of things with this fez is that basically, this fez is a replica of the one from Gravity Falls. I'll post a picture right here. This is Grunkle Stan's fez. He wears one, and it has this symbol on it. When I made the red fez, I wanted it in the scene, but then I realized there's that symbol on it. And so it's just going to be weird and not make sense, you know? And so, with that, it was just, I hope no one saw it, and so it's fine. But with that in mind, this fez just didn't belong in the scene because it belonged to the 11th Doctor, which maybe if I ever do the series again and we get down the road, the 11th Doctor is going to be another character in the Seuses. I won't name who, I'll let you all guess, but let's just say he has a bow tie. So let me know in the comments below who you think is the 11th Doctor in my cast of characters. And if you get it right, I'll pin you. But other than that, the fez really didn't have a point in this video. And the next item that does have a point is the sonic screwdriver. Coming upon the next item, the sonic screwdriver. Now, the sonic screwdriver is the 11th Doctor screwdriver. And funny enough, if I can find it real quick, nope, that's not it. Hold on, I'm looking through the wardrobe of mixed items. Here it is. I have right here my actual sonic screwdriver that I've had for a long time and I've been working on and customizing. When I was making Dr. Mooch, I needed that sound effect of the... Well, I thought this had batteries. I was wrong. But it has this sound effect. I will pop it in. Like, do I have anything that has that sound? Hold on. It made this sound. It would make that sound, and this is what I use to make the sound. And this is the sonic screwdriver I based it off of. You'll see it right now as a clip. But this is the sonic screwdriver I made to be in the scene. And so this is what I use to make the sound. Now, with the sonic screwdriver, it's a bit hard to make because it's very small and it can fit in Mooch's hand. But the first Doctor actually didn't have a screwdriver. But in this episode, Mooch did. Mooch has the 11th Doctor screwdriver, which is green with a yellow case-like thing. But it's actually bronze, as you can see. And actually I did get it right, the colors of gray and black. But there's a bit of bronze in the middle, so I really couldn't detail at that age certain things that well. And so it turned out this, but it is pretty cool, and it pretty much looks like it. And I basically took a cylinder-like tube as the screwdriver innards, and I stuffed it, and then I made these prong-like things. I'll draw up a blueprint to maybe show you guys. And I basically then wrapped it with the yellow after I made the prongs on. I made 4 prongs, because that's how many are on the screwdriver, and then the black like cover. And that's basically how I made that, and it was used in the scene to open the vent up for Mooch, Asia, and Andy to escape, and then was used to defeat the evil that will be shown next. Or actually, will be shown after this next prop. That will be pretty cool. But I'm pretty proud of how this came out, and it looks pretty dang cool. But let me know in the comments below, what's your favorite prop from this episode? So, moving on to one of the next props in this episode, and let's just say it's one of my favorite and the most detailed one. Let's get going. Alrighty, we are back, and the next prop that you can see right here is the Tardis control panel, or the main control deck. And this was one of my favorite props that when I first gathered the props of this series, I forgot to grab this main part, because this is in season 1. And then was in, I believe, season 2. I used the same console, because at that point I was lazy and didn't want to remake props. But when it came to making this prop, I based it off of the 11th Doctor's console. I'll post a picture right here of it. And that's what I based it off of, with all the gadget and gizmos. And as you can look at it now, it's basically a pipe, not a pipe cleaner. It's basically this paper towel roll with cardboard circle around it, and the octagon-like base at the bottom with like headphone jacks, headphone wiring, and just everything headphone, earbud related is on this to make it look like somewhat of the TARDIS. It even has a few switches. I used an earbud for a switch. I use like the earbuds as like buttons and as like megaphones. And then there's the kill switch. That is one of my favorites because it is like an actual proper switch. And it is quite dusty if you actually look at it, because it hasn't seen the light of day in so long. And then there's the kill switch, and actually, funny enough, I will show this off next episode in the maybe season 2 when I cover that. Is for when I made season 2, there was an episode where I probably will cover this again, where I built this into the console. I made a telephone that's on a very long white string. It's wrapped around the entire base of the console, and basically in the one episode, which I'll do a cover of, is that this was used for one of the episodes, and I'll tell more about it later. But it's all wrapped up with wires. There's the TV monitor, and then up top is the like pom-pom-esque like power. And I'll tell the story of how I found this. When I came to recording this, I was going to record this yesterday, but when you see this, it'll be a week later. I recorded this, or I wanted to record this the day after, but realized I don't have all the props. And while looking for all the props for this, I forgot about the main thing that was in episode 1, and that was the console. And I love the console, and I believe in episode 2, maybe I'll go into that next time, because a lot of props have been thrown away, and a lot of props haven't. And so, while looking for the console, I basically looked at least in 2 places. One, the very new Tardis, because when I tried to remake the like level that the original console was on, it was not in there. But then I checked in a silver. When I checked in a silver box that I kept most of my props in for an upcoming project, I put a lot of other props in there as well to make room. And while looking through there, I found it. And if you guys could have seen it, it was bent. It was a bit like dilapidated because of parts fell off, and so that was that. And it's just, this thing has been through so much, and so I understand that it's basically a bit broken down, and it's a bit lopsided on the one side because the glue is slowly starting to get warmed up and then fall off. But it's one of my favorite props I own, and I just love it. But with that, moving on to one of the smallest props from that. Well, actually, it's not one of the smallest. Actually, the screwdriver's the smallest. But moving on to the next prop that is probably second smallest. The next prop, I'll try and prop up on here. There we go. I don't want to knock it off, so I'm going to put my arm over here. This is the newspaper that Mooch read when he first left the Tardis in the first scene. Which is amazing because this prop right here is probably the oldest prop in this series, even though a lot of these characters are older. This actually is the oldest prop that survived like 3 movies, and I can't believe I still have, because it's a little piece of paper, but not really. It's actually a tag from a box I ordered off Amazon, which probably is it's just probably a label, but I ripped it right off. And so, when it came to that scene, I'll do it right here, the scene where he's reading it, and when it came to that scene, I made a script. I made a script for almost every episode. And this episode, I wrote that he was going to read a newspaper to tell the date. And the date on this newspaper is London, September 1st, 1987. Now, as you can tell, I put in an 1887 by accident, and why would it be 1887? Doesn't make sense. So 1987 was better, but it looks smeared and everything. So you can tell my remembering of things kind of went out the window. Now, with that, while looking for these props, again, key things I wanted to find was a lot of stuff. And I looked through every box, and whatever I would find that was from that series, I would grab. And so one of those key items is this, which I found in a box that was with Enderman's boots, which is funny enough because I kept Enderman's boots on a shelf that I talked about earlier, and a lot of the key things from Dr. Mooch was on that shelf. And so when I moved, a lot of those things went into a box, and well, that was that. And so that was thrown into the box of some things off that shelf. And so that was that. And so this is probably one of the oddest slash cool things I still have from that series, because I never knew I was going to keep it, but I probably didn't know either, because, well, it's a little piece of paper. But I probably will, if I ever do get my own home, I will probably just frame it, because it's a key piece of history, you know. But moving on to I believe it is the last prop for this episode, the main villain. Alrighty, ending this episode with a bang. One of my favorite things I made at the moment of this series was, I'll put him in the background, Springtrap. Actually, he'll sit back here with the other cast of characters. Why not? There we go. Now, I'll do some B-roll footage of him on the pedestal. But I made Springtrap in the moment of me learning how to sew. And this was when my good friends Mario Muff Adventures were just learning, or actually starting to show everyone else how to make their FNAF characters. I was amazed, and I just thought, let's go beyond and beyond and make Springtrap, because Springtrap was one of my favorites when FNAF 3 just came out. And so that's what I did. This was my take on Springtrap at the time, because we really couldn't see good photos of him when FNAF 3 came out. And basically, that was one of the key things, was that for this series, well, for this episode, I wanted the first episode to be about where the Cybermen, one of the Doctor's worst villains, takes over the UK, like, slash United Kingdom, London, because Doctor Who is like British television, and basically the Cybermen of my story were Five Nights at Freddy's characters, because I made a lot of them. And I do not remember. I'll put a picture right here of what the characters were actually from that episode, because I believe Springtrap was the main villain that controlled the other Cybermen slash FNAF characters. And I'll put a picture right here of what the main villain was in my series. And my good friend Leanne, or her name was Bubbles at the time, was the Master Bubbles. Kind of what the Master from Doctor Who, the Master is the Doctor's arch enemy that basically is the opposite of Time Lords. Because he's a, like, I believe an ex-Time Lord that does wrong. And so at that time, my good friend was going to play the Master, but over the years, we lost contact, and she went her way, I went my way, and I needed a doctor, or a master. And so this is the picture she made that is the thumbnail of that video, I believe, and it turned out great. So I'll leave a link in the description where you guys can go check out her channel. I believe she still uploads, so go check it out and support her, and tell her the Red Rose Army sent you. And with that, this was the thumbnail. It's pretty good. When I asked her to do this thumbnail, I said, if you could just make Mooch and Asia on the one corners, look up at the screen and just say, I need them to look very disturbed, very just like, well, Asia looked disturbed, which was funny as heck, and Mooch just looked concerned, like, what are you doing? And Bubbles just looked mean, and Springtrap was, of course, her loyal minion. And so, that was that for what I interpret, and came out pretty good when I asked her to draw it, and so turned out pretty good. And you guys absolutely loved the first episode. If I'm correct, it has like probably over 100 views. And it actually did pretty good for the first episode. I was pretty proud. And that was the thumbnail that, well, went pretty good. So I'll show the thumbnail there. But in that case, if I'm looking at my script, I believe that's all the episode. That's all the props I have for today's episode. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this episode. So that's basically all we have for today's episode. Let me know in the comments below what was your favorite prop from this episode. My favorite prop will probably always be the Tardis console, which we have right here. We'll put in the background. And you can't even see. Great. Love this. But anyway, that's all we have. And let me know if you guys like this series idea. If you don't, I will film another one. If this gets a lot of likes and a lot of views, I can't wait to show you more. I shall give a teaser for the next episode. The next episode will be another episode of Dr. Mooch. I believe is season 3, where I will show some of the props from the first season and then to the next season, so we can include most of the main props because there wasn't room in this one. So let me know in the comments below what you thought. Anyway, I gotta go. If you guys enjoy this, let me know in the comments below. Like, hit the bell notifications, and subscribe to become a member of the Red Rose Army. Anyway, I gotta go. See ya, and have a great night. And that is all for this episode of Movie Props, or the Prop Show. See ya! Woo!